The Peugeot 504 arrived in public view at the 1968 Paris Motor Show as a deliberate statement of engineering intent and restrained elegance. Designed under the direction of Aldo Brovarone at Pininfarina, the car combined a conservative exterior presence with engineering choices intended to prioritize comfort, durability, and serviceability over cutting-edge performance. From the outset, the 504 was conceived to serve markets with widely varying road conditions and to be straightforward to maintain. These design priorities influenced chassis layout, suspension geometry, engine packaging, and component selection. Production of the 504 began in 1968 in France and extended, under license and local assembly arrangements, across multiple continents and decades. Official manufacture in Peugeot's European factories continued through the early 1980s, while assembly and production under license persisted in countries from South America to Africa and Asia, keeping the model in active service in some markets well into the first decade of the 21st century. Cumulative production across Peugeot and its licensees exceeded 3 million units, a volume that reflects both the model range's breadth and its long production run. Styling and exterior proportions reflect a measured design language: long bonnet, short overhangs, and a three-box silhouette that reads as functional yet dignified. The face uses stacked rectangular headlamps integrated into a simple grille and bumper packaging that emphasizes chrome detailing on early examples. The coupe and cabriolet variants present a lower roofline and sleeker greenhouse, but maintain the same fundamental front end and visual cues, reinforcing a consistent family identity across body types. At a structural level, the 504 uses a steel monocoque with design attention paid to robustness and repairability. Engines are mounted longitudinally and canted slightly to lower the bonnet profile, a packaging decision that improved forward visibility and allowed for simpler maintenance access from above. The driveline is conventional rear-wheel drive, with a torque tube configuration used on many versions. Transmissions included 4-speed manuals early in the life of the model, later 5-speed manuals, and, where fitted, 3-speed automatic units sourced from ZF or, for certain V6 versions, GM automatic boxes. Suspension design was a central part of the 504's durability story. The front suspension uses McPherson struts in most saloon and coupe variants, providing a compact and serviceable layout that offered predictable steering geometry and acceptable wheel control. Rear suspension varied with body style. Sedans, coupes, and cabriolets were typically fitted with independent rear suspension using semi-trailing arms coupled to coil springs, delivering better ride quality and lateral control. Estate, brake versions, and some commercial or utility derivatives used a solid live rear axle with coil springs to improve load carrying and simplify heavy-duty service tasks. Certain pickup and commercial variants adopted heavier leaf springs or reinforced suspension components for the increased payload requirements. Brake and steering systems were selected to give drivers clear feedback and predictable stopping performance. Front disc brakes were standard on many models. Rear brakes could be discs or drums depending on model and market. Rack and pinion steering provided direct response and, paired with the suspension layout and long travel geometry, contributed to the 504's well-reported composure on poor surfaces. Engine choice evolved across the model's life, reflecting both market demands and the need for progressively more efficient, torquey units. Petrol engines initially included 1.8-liter and 2.0-liter four-cylinder units. A 2.6-liter V6, produced as part of the PRV collaboration, was later introduced for higher trim coupe and saloon variants, offering improved smoothness and additional top-end capability. Diesel engines played a defining role in many markets where the 504 would ultimately achieve reputation for longevity and economy. Diesel variants ranged from around 1.95 liters to 2.3 liters in displacement, utilizing Peugeot's robust XD family of diesel engines. Their low revving torque characteristics and simple mechanical fuel systems were well suited to long-distance driving and easy to maintain in regions where workshop sophistication varied. Performance figures across the range were necessarily conservative by sports car standards, but matched the car's mission: comfortable cruising, predictable handling, and strong low-down torque where required. A typical 1.8-liter petrol 504 produces modest horsepower, delivers steady acceleration, and returns usable economy for touring. Diesel variants emphasize mid-range torque and fuel efficiency rather than outright speed. The V6 petrol models provide smoother top-end power delivery and more relaxed cruising on motorways. But even these versions were not tuned for high performance. They were intended to add refinement rather than transform the car's character to that of a sports saloon. Transmission choices reflected practicality and long-standing maintenance philosophies. Manual transmissions were the default choice in most markets, with a 4-speed unit early in production replaced later by a close ratio 5-speed in certain models to improve fuel economy and reduce engine stress at highway speeds. Automatic transmissions were optional on some coupe and cabriolet models and on selected saloons. The relative simplicity of the manual boxes contributed to ease of repair in remote locations. Cabin layout and trim followed a functional but comfortable philosophy. Seats were supportive for long distances and tended toward firmer cushioning to retain shape under heavy use. Materials and finishes reflected both the luxury aspirations of higher trim models and the utilitarian needs of commercial and taxi variants. Instrumentation was straightforward and serviceable, often focused on essential gauges and warning lights, with a notable early introduction of a brake pad wear indicator on some versions, an example of Peugeot's attention to practical safety features. Variants broadened the 504's appeal. The brake estate featured a lengthened rear section, higher roofline, and an option for 7-seat arrangements in the Familiale configuration. It was engineered to carry heavier loads without sacrificing the suspension compliance that made the 504 so effective over poor roads. Coupe and cabriolet versions, while sharing much of the donor architecture, featured unique suspension tuning for a slightly firmer ride and handling balance befitting their sporting presentation. Pickup and commercial models were simplified and reinforced for durability and payload, with revised rear structures and suspension components tuned to higher spring and damping rates where required. Corrosion protection and body repairability were deliberately addressed. Panels were straightforward to source or fabricate for the era, and the chloride-free paint processes then used on many series-produced units lent acceptable longevity. The wide global assembly strategy also meant that replacement parts and subassemblies were manufactured locally in many markets, which in turn reduced downtime and enabled extended service life on vehicles operating in remote regions. The 504's capability on poor surfaces is not accidental. Long suspension travel, robust subframe and mounting designs, and components that could withstand shock loading were integral. Steering geometry was chosen to preserve stability over irregular surfaces, rather than prioritize track-focused precision. Combined with a high geometric ground clearance compared with contemporary European family saloons and conservative tire profiles, the car negotiated dirt roads, rocky tracks, and pothole-ridden sections with a composure that won the brand enduring praise in developing markets. Global assembly and license production were instrumental in the 504's longevity. Following initial manufacture in France, the model was assembled or built under license in countries including Argentina, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, China, and Egypt, among others. These local operations often adapted the model to local needs, fitting heavier suspension components, simpler trim, and diesel engines that matched local fuel availability. In several African countries, the 504 became the de facto taxi and utility vehicle, prized for a combination of ride comfort, toughness, and the ease with which owners and local mechanics could maintain the powertrain and chassis systems. In routine maintenance terms, the design aims to simplify service intervals and parts replacement. Cylinder head access on the 4-cylinder engines is straightforward. Valve clearance adjustment is a conventional shim or tappet procedure depending on the variant, and diesel fuel systems are mechanical, avoiding complex electronics common in later diesel designs. The torque characteristics of the diesels allow for low-set gear ratios and less frequent clutch abuse in stop-start urban use, a factor contributing to the model's longevity in taxi fleets. Manufacturing and parts distribution strategies reinforced reliability. Local assembly plants often used knockdown kits and local suppliers for body fixings, trim, and frequently replaced components like brake shoes and filters, making spares procurement easier in many export markets. The combination of a simple driveline architecture, easy-to-source consumables, and a broad dealer network in the car's major markets formed a service ecosystem supportive of long service life. In competition, the 504 showed itself capable in selective forms of motorsport adapted to its strengths. It was entered in endurance and rally events where robustness and reliability were paramount, achieving notable class results in regional rallies in Africa and Latin America. These outings proved the chassis and drivetrain could be tuned and protected for extended hard use and reinforced the model's reputation for tenacity on rough terrain. Safety considerations in the 504 are pragmatic rather than innovative by modern standards. The car benefited from a sturdy passenger cell relative to some contemporaries and from engineering choices that prioritized predictable crash behavior. Early attention to occupant protection and the inclusion of practical safety features such as clear instrumentation and brake wear warning were meaningful in their day. Although the 504 predates many legislative safety requirements that shaped later vehicle architecture, its ride stability, effective braking on variants fitted with discs all round, and predictable steering response contributed to driver confidence and accident avoidance capability. Economically, the 504 fulfilled several roles depending on the market segment. In Europe and South America, it served as a family car and light tourer, occupying a space between compact saloons and larger executive vehicles. In many African and Asian markets, it found a second life as a commercial, taxi, and long-distance transport vehicle where running costs, parts availability, and durability were decisive purchase factors. The wide range of body styles, saloon, estate, coupe, cabriolet, pickup, and various commercial configurations, allowed Peugeot to market the platform across income and use categories without major re-engineering. The 504's diesel variants were particularly valued for fuel economy and torque. The XD family diesels are simple, mechanically fueled units that, while not fast, provide dependable torque delivery and straightforward maintenance. Low revving operation reduces the mechanical stress of constant high RPM driving and, alongside conservative, red lines and heavy-duty components in gearboxes and clutches in diesel models, contributes to long service lives when routine maintenance is observed. Fuel system design choices prioritized serviceability. Carburetors were standard on many petrol variants early in production, with fuel injection reserved for higher trim or later models where improved economy and refinement were required. Diesel models used mechanical injection pumps. The robustness and relative simplicity of these pumps, and their compatibility with local fuel qualities, contributed to their suitability in less developed markets where modern common rail systems and high-pressure injection were not feasible. Electrically, the 504 carries simple wiring looms, relays, and gauges. The absence of extensive electronic control units in early models simplified diagnostic work and made it feasible for owners with basic tools to trace faults to connectors, ignition components, or mechanical fuel system elements. This hands-on repairability is central to the car's longevity in remote areas where full diagnostic services were not present. Interior ergonomics are logical and conservative. Controls are laid out to be reachable without driver distraction. Heating and ventilation systems are straightforward and engineered for durability with simple actuators. Seating positions are set to favor comfort and road view rather than sporty seating ergonomics. This choice benefits long-distance work and taxi use where occupants and driver remain seated for prolonged periods. Corrosion-related maintenance is dependent on market environment and the practices of local servicing. In climates without salt usage and with regular maintenance schedules, the 504's shell and underbody last many decades. In coastal or heavily salted regions, owners historically mitigated corrosion with regular underbody treatments and replacement panels. Actions made simpler by the availability of panels and the platform's mechanical simplicity. The 504's steering calibration and chassis balance were tuned to provide predictable behavior at speed and on rough roads. The geometry affords reasonable self-centering and directional stability. Combined with a compliant suspension, this reduces driver fatigue and enhances control over long journeys. Tire choices and wheel sizes historically favored profiles that increased sidewall flex and shock absorption rather than low-profile sport tires, further cushioning occupants and protecting the underbody from impact damage. Service intervals and recommended maintenance practices reflect the car's era. Frequent oil and filter changes by modern standards, periodic valve clearance checks, routine brake inspections, and replacement of wear items such as shock absorbers and bushes at intervals depending on road conditions. The car's adaptability means local mechanics routinely upgraded components such as suspension bushes, shock absorbers, and springs to suit local conditions, a practice that extended service life and preserved ride characteristics under heavy use. Through its production run, the 504 received incremental updates responding to emissions, comfort, and equipment expectations. Trim levels evolved and more powerful or economical engines were introduced, but the fundamental architecture remained largely unchanged to retain the strengths that made the model successful in rough environments. The long mechanical commonality across years simplified parts interchange and helped owners maintain older cars using components designed for successive models. The 504's reputation as a workhorse is not simply anecdotal. A combination of robust mechanical design, local assembly, straightforward parts supply chains, and a chassis tuned for rough roads explains why fleets and independent owners kept them in operation for many years. Taxi fleets in several African capitals often relied on the 504 because it combined passenger comfort with an ability to tolerate abuse that would prematurely retire more delicate rivals. Serviceability by local mechanics, coupled with the car's reserve of spare parts from local assembly operations, reduced total cost of ownership and downtime for operators reliant on daily revenue. From a restoration perspective, the 504 offers an attractive proposition. Sheet metal is straightforward to repair. Mechanical systems are broadly conventional and well documented, and a thriving owner community has developed a global spare parts pipeline for commonly worn items. Coupe and cabriolet variants, produced in lower numbers, command niche interest among collectors because of their Pininfarina coach-built bodies and a slightly different dynamic character stemming from their lower mass and more sporting appointments. Collectors and historians commonly note the 504 as an example of pragmatic design meeting real-world needs. It is at once a statement of late 1960s French automotive design and a vehicle optimized for a world beyond well-paved highways. That duality is central to its enduring appeal. Handsome yet conservative styling, mechanical simplicity allied to thoughtful engineering choices, and a versatility that allowed the platform to be adapted for family, commercial, and sporting use. Operational anecdotes from markets where the 504 persisted into the 21st century repeatedly reference the car's ability to carry heavy loads, to survive poorly maintained roads, and to accept simple repairs in informal workshops. The global footprint of the model created a cultural familiarity. In many regions, the sight of a 504 in service signified a dependable vehicle rather than a high-status object, and that perception reinforced the car's value proposition as a tool rather than a trophy. The 504's engineering compromises are worth noting because they underline the model's intent. Rather than chasing ultimate performance or the latest electronics, Peugeot deployed materials and sub-assemblies chosen for durability. Suspension travel was generous, damping rates deliberate, and component tolerances generous compared with performance cars. These decisions produce a car that behaves predictably under loading and recovers from off-axis impacts better than contemporaries optimized for on-road handling precision. Market survival strategies included continuing local production and incremental local modifications in countries where spare part manufacturing and sheet metal fabrication were possible. Local enterprises produced replacement parts and even upgraded components. This local ecosystem reinforced the 504's long service life and allowed operators to customize setups for local conditions, from reinforced bumpers to simplified electrical systems. Maintenance best practice for a 504 in continuous service emphasizes preventive tasks, high-quality engine oil and timely changes, regular cooling system inspections and radiator cleaning to prevent overheating in hot climates, routine brake system bleeding and inspection to prevent loss of efficiency, and periodic inspection of suspension bushings and shock absorbers to maintain ride quality and prevent premature failure. Fuel filtration is essential for diesel variants operating on marginal fuel, and owners often fit additional inline filters or upgrade the fuel system plumbing to reduce pump wear and injector fouling. Common weak points after decades of use are predictable. Corroded body sills and floor pan sections in salted environments, worn suspension bushes and shock absorbers from heavy use, leaking axle seals and perished rubber hoses in the engine bay, and carburetor or mechanical fuel pump wear leading to starting and idling problems. These failures are typically repairable with off-the-shelf or reproduced components and are well documented in owner forums and parts catalogs. Electrically, improvements over time included more reliable alternators and starter motors, the gradual introduction of electric windscreen washers and wipers with delayed operation in later models, and upgraded instrument illumination. Drivers often report that conservative electrical loads and simple fuse circuits reduce the incidence of complex wiring faults. From an operational viewpoint, the 504's fuel economy depends on engine selection, load, and driving style. Diesel variants generally yield superior real-world consumption figures compared to petrol counterparts under sustained highway or high-load use, where diesel torque enables lower engine speeds. Tuning for economy is straightforward. Maintaining correct ignition timing, carburetor calibration where fitted, and regular fuel system cleaning produce noticeable improvements in consumption and drivability. Long-term ownership data and fleet experience show that a properly maintained 504 can deliver exceptionally high mileages. The combination of robust mechanical components, parts, commonality, and a culture of routine servicing in its primary markets means that many examples logged multiple hundreds of thousands of kilometers with original engines and gearbox assemblies intact. Modern restorers and enthusiasts value the 504 for a combination of aesthetics, engineering honesty, and real-world capability. The coupe and cabriolet carry additional premium due to lower production numbers and coach-built elements, while estate and pickup derivatives remain popular as project vehicles because of their practicality and load-carrying potential. Technical upgrades commonly applied today include electronic ignition conversions for improved starting and reliability, modernized fuel pumps or fuel filtration for diesel models, and retuned suspension components or upgraded shocks to restore original ride quality under modern tire and load conditions. Brake system overhauls often include new discs and pads, braided lines, and, in some cases, conversion to more readily available master cylinder or caliper assemblies where compatible. The Peugeot 504 stands as an archetype of a particular automotive solution, a car engineered to be comfortable at speed on good roads and to resist breakdown on poor ones. Its global footprint, long production life, and the adaptability of its mechanicals explain why it became ubiquitous in markets that demanded dependable transport more than headline performance. In preserving these facts and the clear lines of its design philosophy, the 504 provides a textbook case of how to design for longevity, repairability, and real-world versatility. For content creators and historians focusing on the 504, factual narratives of interest include production chronology and international assembly, diesel versus petrol deployment across markets, technical descriptions of chassis and suspension differences between body styles, and documented rally and competition use. Combined, these topics explain how a single platform could satisfy family buyers, commercial operators, and rally entrants without extensive re-engineering. In summarizing without embellishment, the Peugeot 504 was introduced in 1968, designed by Aldo Broverone at Pininfarina, produced in Europe through the early 1980s and continued under license in several countries into the new millennium. It combined a rugged chassis, long travel suspension, a range of petrol and durable diesel engines, and straightforward mechanical systems to become a vehicle prized for reliability and comfort in difficult road conditions. Its adaptability across multiple body styles, local assembly, and straightforward serviceability cemented its reputation as an economical, durable, and versatile car, and explains why it persists in practical use and historical interest decades after its introduction.